Acting DA has stopped seeking prison sentences in lieu of criminal cases.
It says we're live now. Can you see us now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we're good?
Yep.
We just pick it up.
I see the ceiling though. If you want to put a countdown.
Well,
go
yeah,
ahead.
it's delayed.
Perfect.
It's-
You guys look wonderful.
Okay.
So I end you very briefly. Count you on the full screen. You're out there.
Do we do the countdown again and then start? Or just start?
You can
Just
go ahead and start. Give me a moment to get this mouse out of the view.
Well,
I don't know what's happening. Live. All right, excellent.
We are good and up and running?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
great,
Take on off.
great. Thank you so much. Hey there, we've had some technical issues beyond our control. Thanks so much for joining us for another Behind Breaking Bond. For more than a year now, myself, Randy Wallace with Fox 26, along with.
You got to turn that phone off.
I do.
Okay? Turn the phone off. Okay. I'm Andy Kahn, Director of Victim Services, Crime Stoppers of Houston, and I'm sitting here with some delicious Pez. Because they're actually going to send me Pez to actually start doing this. So, plus, I don't like the orange ones. So.
Pez is going to say they have no control over what any of us has to say.
All right, very good.
So again, if you're familiar with Breaking Bond, we've been doing it for more than a year now. We take a look at defendants who are free from jail on multiple felony bonds, and because of that occurrence, how many people have lost their lives?
I've charted now documented 156 people who have been killed by defendants released on multiple felony bonds, felony PR bond, and/or bond forfeiture. So it's important to understand, if you are out on one felony bond and you are charged with murder, you didn't make that list. And trust me, there were dozens and dozens of them that were like that. So it had to be a combination. You had to be out on more than a bond, or you were given a get out of jail PR, personal recognizance bond, or you were bond and you forfeited your bond to get on that list. Of the 156, 119 since 2020.
And that's caused a lot of people to sort of take a look at stopping this, basically, and the way to stop it is going to be through the election this year. Crime is the number one issue.
Crime is number one, number two, number three, 900 and bazillion, 999. There's only one issue in Harris County in the upcoming primary and in the general election, and that is crime and public safety. Because you look at our homicide rates, they have gone up 70%. And that's just in the city of Houston. I don't even have the numbers for Harris County, right, since 2019. So when you add in the city of Houston and you add in unincorporated Harris County, we were close to 600 in 2021. I haven't seen numbers like that since the late 80s, early 90s.
And that's when, in the early mid 80s, Houston was kind of known as the murder capital of the country because we had so many.
1982, we were number one. We had over 700 homicides. And, back then we had a severe prison overcrowding problem crisis that was leading to defendants who were serving only a month for every year they were getting sentenced to. So it's kind of like 30 some odd years later, here we are right back to where we were in the late 80s, early 90s. The only difference is the revolving door at the courthouse as opposed to the revolving door at prisons.
And we all know that the Texas Constitution grants everyone a bond, and everyone should be given a bond. The situation that we've been reporting on and telling you about is that defendants are out on multiple bonds. They're committing more crimes.
You look at, and this is numbers provided by the Harris County District Attorney's Office, and you look, and they provided these numbers when they testified in front of the Texas Senate Criminal Justice or Jurisprudence Committee. The number of defendants who have been charged with crimes while on more than one bond has doubled in the last 2 years. What was almost unheard of is the fact that you've got over 110 defendants who are charged with capital murder, actually out on bond in Harris County. You and I have been doing stories together for 30 years. We'll age ourselves. We never did a story involving a defendant on bond for capital murder until this year.
Right.
Period. It didn't happen. It was unheard of. Now it's happening routinely, and of the 113 some odd defendants who were actually granted a bond on capital murder, 3 of them have actually gone on to commit additional murders. I mean, it simply defies logic what we're seeing right now. So things have got to change, but the only way things are going to change is if voters get informed as to who they vote for, because elections have consequences, and we're seeing the brunt of that right now.
And that's an excellent point. If you're troubled by this, if you don't like the idea of repeat violent offenders walking around on multiple felony bonds, what you need to do is pay close attention when you go to the polls to who's running for Harris County Criminal District Court judges. A lot of the ones that are there now are new. One of the things that we've yet to see is the primary, which is Tuesday, March the 1st. There's people running against their own political.
Like I said, I've been around decades. I've not seen an election in which you have sitting judges, incumbent judges, that are actually going to be contested in their own primary. Basically, if you were a judge and you were going to run again in the Democrat primary, or if you were a Republican and you were going to run, you ran unopposed.
Right.
That's not happening in a majority of the both misdemeanor and felony district court cases. So when I saw who was running in the upcoming election cycle, and I saw most of the incumbent judges who are on the ballot actually have primary opponents, to me, that sends a message.
And one of the things that we are going to be doing here on Behind Breaking Bond and on the Breaking Bond segment that runs on the 9 o'clock newscast on Fox 26 News at 9 is talk to as many judges as we can and as many candidates. I have one here right now, Linda Mazzaghetti. Tell us about yourself, Linda.
Well, I'm a prosecutor now. I have also been a defense attorney, and I am running for judge because of exactly what you guys are talking about, the bonds that are being extended to these people who have they're criminal defendants that have multiple felonies, and they are being released into our community, and they are causing a crime wave. If crime was a stock, I'd buy it. It has shot up. There's no question that the release of these defendants on bond has caused the criminal problem that we have right now, and that's why I'm running. I never wanted to be a judge before, but I can't stand idly by in the blood of my neighbors. I went to the Holocaust Museum recently and for a Stand Up Against Hate speech presentation, and one of the speakers cited this as a quote out of the Torah, and I'm like, that's perfect. I cannot stand idly by in the blood of my neighbors, and there are 156 people now dead at the hands of people, allegedly at the hands of the people that have been released on bonds, multiple bonds in Harris County. It never used to happen before. And what Mr. Khan just said, how people on capital murder have been released on bond, never used to happen before. Now, everybody's entitled to a bond, and I used to be, as a defense attorney, the person arguing for that bond. So I know what is a fair bond, and I know when it is dangerous to the community. And my big problem is violent offenders being released. I'm fine with people who are not violent offenders being released on nominal bonds, but I have a real problem with violent offenders being released into our community for the wrong reason. And that's why I'm running for judge.
What race are you in?
The 248 against Hillary Unger. And I understand that a number of defendants have been released on bond in her court. And unfortunately, to the demise of our Harris County citizens, because they are being endangered by these violent offenders who, let me tell you something, I talk to the police on a regular basis, and as a grand jury prosecutor, I had the opportunity to see how many violent offenders were out on bond. And they would have 7 bonds and 8 bonds, and that never used to happen. Judges used to revoke bonds. In 2015, we had judges on the bench that would revoke bonds. And there were 4 motions by the state to revoke bond. And in 2020 and 2021, there are 17,000 motions filed by the state of Texas through the Harris County District Attorney's Office that have been completely ignored by our current judiciary.
Do you think that could possibly be a record? That's a lot.
I would hope that that's a record.
Yeah.
Because it's unfathomable that we have that many people that the state can ask for the court to revoke the bond, and they're just completely ignoring the state's request to revoke these people's bond. And the reason I'm running is to make our streets safer, because they have been made dangerous by our current judiciary.
One of the things that Andy and I have talked about this before, in all my years of reporting, I can never recall before the whole breaking bond, before what we're seeing now, an instance where there was a criminal district court judge who had repeatedly released someone that went on to kill someone. Now that, I think you would agree, if that would have ever happened, that's kind of front page news, right? I mean, everybody would be, how many times have we done it now? I mean, there's many judges, Unger included, that we have found instances where she let someone out repeatedly and they went on to allegedly commit a murder. She's not the only judge that we've profiled that's done that.
No, and to me, what's even more disturbing, harping on that, okay, the fact that you've got a defendant who's now charged with murder, who's been released on 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bonds or a PR bond. Then they're charged. You would think that would be the end of the story.
Yeah.
That's not it. We've seen over 20 people who are actually on this list back out on bond again.
Even after a murder charge.
Even after you've done stories. You remember the one young man, Raul Zarco, 17 years old, Sharktown High School student, the defendant charged with his murder. Raul Leon was on 6 felony bonds, had numerous bond violation reports filed, several motion to revoke bonds. So they get him in, they charge him with murder, and like I said, you would have thought that would have been the end of the story. He's actually back out on bond again. I mean, I can't script this stuff and what's happening right now. And the fact that, there's so many people that are now running against the incumbent judges. If you go back and you look, this is unheard of.
Yeah, right. I mean, you're a Democrat running against a Democrat.
I am a Democrat running against a Democrat in the 248, and I never would have done that before. But I cannot watch these judges continuously release violent offenders into our community. And they should be in jail, because we need protection as citizens of the community. It can happen to any one of us. As so many victims' families, as you've seen, Mr. Khan, because you've done this for 30 some odd years, dealt with the victims of these crimes that are actually their families, the survivors.
Well, many of these are tragedies, yet, you look at them, but they're so,
They shouldn't have happened.
top line, and we keep saying that time. So how do you run as a judge? I mean, what do you do? How do you camp? How do you
How do you make people aware of this?
Well, I come on the Breaking Bond series and talk to the people.
You're the first one. Congratulations.
Yes.
Well, thank you.
Not only
very
that,
much.
but I do have to give you kudos for pronouncing your last name.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much.
I mean, I would have just said Linda.
Yeah.
It was total luck.
I tell jurors that it's like Maserati only.
That's a good way to remember it.
And they always call me that.
What have you been doing, or what are you hoping to do? Because you don't have a lot of time, right? You got about a month for the primary.
I know, and it is my hope to get out there and with websites and just reach the people and tell them that the reason that I'm running is because we have too much crime on our streets, and I need to make our streets safer. And I think that I will do that I will certainly follow the law, and I believe that everybody is entitled to a bond with consideration. I think Judge Rosenthal's people shouldn't be in jail because they're poor. Well, I agree, but at the same time, being poor is not a get out of jail free card. There are other variables to consider, and the variables are your criminal history and your propensity that you've demonstrated towards violence of our community. And as you said, there are too many people on multiple felony bonds. One, no question. The second bond, sometimes there's a reason for that, but a third bond is going to be an extreme.
We used to have an adage in Harris County, and it was basically one bond per customer.
Yeah.
You were out on bond and you were charged with another felony, guess what? You weren't getting out again, case closed, because you pretty much, I would think that if you're on bond, that's pretty much your primary reason of abiding by your conditions.
Right, yeah.
To get
Yeah, you
charged
don't want to go back to
another
jail,
crime.
right.
So you
Exactly.
pretty much demonstrated by that. And that's kind of what we're seeing. We understand the federal orders for misdemeanor cases.
Right.
We had no issue with that. Where we drew the line is what we were seeing repeatedly released of the same defendant time and time again. And that's simply discretionary, right? You're not
Exactly.
under
Yeah.
any federal court order
No.
Right.
like the misdemeanor courts are
Exactly
under.
right.
I mean,
It is
judges
your
have a
option.
lot of power. I mean, they do.
And I will tell you what has really come to my attention is in talking to victims and also in talking to the police. The defendants, and I read the offense reports and I watch the videos of the interviews on the robberies, they laugh at their victims and they say, I'll be out in 3 days. And also the police, they laugh at the police and the police say, yeah, they're laughing at us. And I feel sorry for the police that have to arrest these people knowing that these people will be re-released within a few days.
How
And
frustrating would that be?
the problem is, it's true.
Yeah.
They will be released within a few days based on what's happening in our court system right now. And it's a shame, and it needs to stop. And something needs to change, and I'm the face of that change. I want to sit the bench to make a difference so our streets are safer and Harris County's crime rate goes down instead of up.
I mean, there's no doubt that this has played a part in that.
No question, no question.
No, we have always said the revolving door at the courthouse has played a significant role in the increased crime rates. I don't know how you can seriously, deny that or say that it's not happening, because it is happening, and you see it on the front lines.
I see it every day, all day long. And it's unfair to the citizens of Harris County, and they need to vote a change.
Linda, before we go, tell the folks, do you have a website? How can they find out more about you and that sort of thing?
Well, I'm gonna get a website.
You're gonna be
I
okay?
already have somebody working on that,
Good.
and I'm a native of Bel Air,
Yeah.
and so I have friends. I went to Bel Air High School. I have a lot of friends and family in the community, and they're all helping me get out the message, and hope to do that a little more. And anytime you guys want to talk, I am here to sing y'all's praises. Thank you so much for your outstanding work in bringing this to the attention, because the Harris County citizens don't know. They actually blame our DA, who actually, DA Kim Log and her first assistant, David Mitchum, my good friend, they're my friends. They went before the Senate to argue that this needs to stop, and hearing officers should not render these decisions of such nominal bonds. There's a case of Enrique Gomez. It's a recently unpublished opinion actually, out of 2020 by Judge Mary Lou Keel, and God rest her soul, she was a good judge on the Court of Criminal Appeals. And it was that Judge Ramona Franklin saw that there were 2 bonds given to a defendant, a violent offender, and they two multiple bonds that were $20,000 each to an amount of $40,000, and she raised it to $150,000 without there being any difference of time He had not violated the argument from the
She
defense.
just used her discretion as a judge.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah,
And the Court of Appeals reversed her and said, can't do that. He didn't violate anything of the bond. And the Court of Criminal Appeals reversed the Court of Appeals and said, you know what? She has plenary power. She has the authority as the judge of that court to set a proper bond, and she did it $150,000 and it sticks.
Well, to use an old political adage, the buck stops with.
right, yeah, yes.
Exactly right.
Well, you be sure to remember Linda Mazzaghetti when you go to the March primary. And again, we want to hear from other candidates. We mentioned you, Judge Unger. If you want to come on here, we'd love to sit down and talk to you before the primary. And please be sure to join us at 9 o'clock tonight for another riveting episode of
Breaking Bond. Riveting is the word.
Thanks so much for watching. Bye.